Chapter 1, Introduction, Part 2. Computers are no longer just calculating devices. They've evolved. They're now data processing devices, general purpose data processing devices. They deal with lots of different kinds of data, not just numbers anymore. Now, in order for a computer to process data, that data has to be available for the computer to process it. And, of course, the computer has to have the ability to access that data and do something with it. So the computer has to have memory where data can be stored while it's being processed. And the computer has to have a processor to process the data. Every kind of processor, every central processing unit has its own collection of actions or operations, the collection of things that it can do. The operations it can execute. Now, the operations that a computer's CPU can perform tend to be simple things. Computers produce complex results by doing lots of simple things really fast. Now, each of the operations that a CPU can perform has a numerical code, an instruction code that identifies what the operation is. The collection of codes identifying the operations that the processor can do is called the machine language for the processor. Now, a sequence of these codes to get the processor to produce some effect is called a program, a machine language program. A machine language program can be stored in computer memory, and the processor can access those instructions and execute them. A computer functions by doing 4 actions over and over and over again. It fetches a machine command from memory. Then it decodes, identifies what that command is, what that code commands the CPU to do. Then it does it. It executes the command that it just identified. Then it stores the result of the computation, the result of the action, if there is any, and then it does it again and again. It fetches, decodes, executes, stores, fetches, decodes, executes, stores. The actions, commands, are simple. Add two numbers, copy a number from one place to another. Computers derive their power by doing lots of things really, really fast. Lots of simple things in a very short period of time. When people talk about computers, computer systems, two terms that get used a lot are hardware and software. The term hardware refers to the physical components of the system, electric components, electronic components, mechanical components. The term software refers to the programs that control what your computing system does. Artificial neural network is relatively recent, different implementation for computations. A neural network is a network, a circuit of neurons or nodes, so that the neural network is possibly biological, possibly artificial network made up of simulated or real biological neurons. The network designed to solve artificial intelligence problems. The artificial neural networks do not separate memory and processing. They operate by means of signals flowing through network connections, much the way they do in biological networks. The artificial networks can be used for predictive modeling, adaptive control, and applications where they can be trained. Self-learning comes from experience, self-modification of transfer characteristics in these networks. They can learn and end up deriving conclusions from complex and not apparently related information. Another technique, another implementation is the quantum computers. These are controllable quantum mechanical devices that exploit the properties of quantum physics to do computations. The quantum computers are not in very wide use at the moment, but they are being developed more and becoming more and more useful. They appear to have potential for solving problems that digital computers, traditional computers, cannot do in any reasonable length of time. The most widely discussed, but certainly not the only, of these problems is factoring very, very large numbers. The ability to factor huge numbers in reasonable time is going to have very serious implications for communication security, since the security of communications is, for the most part, built on the assumption that factorization of big numbers is not reasonable in reasonable time. For standard computers, classical computers, the fundamental unit of information is the bit. For quantum computing, it's the qubit, the quantum bit. Bits, binary digits, will have a specific value, either 0 or 1, but a qubit can have value that is a quantum superposition of zeros and ones. Quantum computers process data represented by qubits by passing them through quantum gates. Superposition and entanglement permit certain kinds of operations to be performed much, much faster than they would be performed by digital computers. The primary difference between classical computers and quantum computers is that quantum computers, the data is intrinsically probabilistic. They represent values that are quantum superpositions, and classical computers, that's inherently deterministic. Qubits are subject to decoherence, which makes their storage and transmission difficult, problematic, and it so far limits the reliability of the current quantum computers. The wide availability of computers and communication technology has caused a number of major changes in the way our society operates. Things that these have changed include the way we work, the way we interact with each other, the way we teach our children, our education system. In the workplace, computing technology and communication technology has improved the efficiency and has increased productivity. But they have placed greater responsibilities on the workers. Now that computers are everywhere, workers are expected to use the computers. That means they have to learn how to use them. So computer literacy has become an important component of the skill set necessary to be employable in the 21st century. Even jobs that don't require computing technology are often advertised online and require the applicants apply online. With the widespread availability of computer communications, many jobs that used to require the worker be present in the workplace can now be done from home, and the workers are frequently expected to do so at, yeah, at the boss's convenience. A work arrangement where employees do not commute. They do not go to a central workplace. This arrangement is called telecommuting. The rise of social networking has had an enormous effect in politics. This is especially true in the United States, but it also has had an effect elsewhere. Barack Obama made very effective use of Facebook and YouTube for fundraising and for promoting his positions and policies. Donald Trump has become famous for his use of Twitter to promote his views and rally his base and spread what has been reported to be lies and misinformation. The effects of computing technology on education is very hard to overstate. It's been a major effect. Many educational software programs exist to help children and adults. Educational games and a variety of other kinds of programs can help improve children's skills in a number of different critical areas: vocabulary, mathematics, logical thinking, typing, history, many more. Computers are also changing the way children are educated at school. The internet provides students with a wealth of extra resources for knowledge and research in addition to their textbooks. Children who use computers and internet from an early age have a strong tendency to perform better in their classrooms than students who don't. The COVID pandemic forced most school districts and universities to close and send the students home. This basically forced the education industry to turn to online teaching, online learning. In many respects, the education industry's move to remote instruction is similar to the increased adoption of telecommuting in the workplace. Although there has been a general return to in-person instruction, in education at least, most institutions have retained a greatly enhanced online presence. We noted earlier, computer literacy is becoming an essential skill both socially and for employment. Unfortunately, many children and lots of adults have limited access to computer and computing technology. This digital divide in classes of people, some who do have access, others who don't, has important consequences for our society. Unfortunately, the widespread use of computers and communications technology has made new avenues of attack available for those who want to take advantage of us. Now we have to protect our children and sometimes ourselves against cyberbullying. Our computers have to be protected against malware, and our businesses and individuals have to go to great lengths to protect their systems against attacks by hackers. Malware is a term that's used to refer to several forms of hostile software: computer viruses, worms, Trojan horses, ransomware, spyware, adware, scareware, and others. Very often, this malware is disguised or embedded in non-malicious files. It's often used to try to gain information like personal identification, details, bank or credit card numbers, passwords. If our computers are left unprotected and connected to the network, they can be at great risk against these threats. These are very common. So, computers are frequently defended by various kinds of protection software, firewalls, antivirus software, various kinds of network hardware. As of 2020, the most common kinds of malware were crypto mining malware, mobile malware, botnets, info stealers, and Trojans. Cryptocurrency mining software is designed to take advantage of the fact that some of the cryptocurrencies pay miners for solving proof of work computational puzzles. The malware uses infected computers to solve these problems to make money for the malware operators. Mobile malware is a growing issue and is the second most common type of malware behind crypto mining. This family covers a wide range. The most common mobile malware variants are droppers that deliver other types of mobile malware, but also include adware. A botnet is a collection of infected computers that an attacker controls and uses to perform distributed denial of service attacks, credential stuffings, large-scale automatic attacks. Botnet malware then is malware designed to infect a computer and implement command and control structures allowing the controller, the attacker, to send commands to the malware and have it achieve the attacker's purposes so that the attacker can have a large number of external computers to do what he wants them to do all at the same time. In 2019, over a quarter of worldwide organizations were infected by botnet malware. Info stealers, more commonly spyware, are malware designed to spy on a computer's user. to collect different kinds of information, personal details, login credentials, financial data, other information. A Trojan is a general term for malware designed to masquerade as something else. The fifth most common type of malware in 2020 was the banking Trojan, malware that attempts to steal credentials for online bank accounts, information credentials to gain access to the bank accounts and other sources of income. In 2021, Checkpoint produced a report. They determined that the most common, the leading kinds of malware cyber attacks were ransomware and supply chain attacks. Global cyber attacks had increased greatly, like almost 30%. Hackers began to exploit the COVID-19 pandemic and took advantage of the large scale shift to remote work. Ransomware attacks increased by 93%, principally using a new attack technique, triple extortion. Triple extortion involves ransomware stealing sensitive data from organizations, threatening to release the data publicly unless the organization paid them, and then also attacking customers and partners, demanding ransoms from them as well. There was a major increase in supply chain attacks. Solar wind supply chain attack was the most well-known one and most biggest one, but there were other sophisticated supply chain attacks as well. They predict for 2021 that although law enforcement and government enforcement were stepping up to work against ransomware, it would continue to grow. Hackers are using sophisticated penetration tools that allow them to customize attacks on the fly. This then is inflicting collateral damage, not only to the initial target victim, but to others as well. With more and more people having more and more computers, starting in the more or less the early 1980s, more and more people were using these computers to commit different kinds of crimes. With people using computers to commit crimes, the discipline of computer forensics was beginning to be developed. People trying to find evidence, digital evidence for use in court. As computers became more and more common. Crimes involving computers became more and more common. Computer forensics becomes more and more important. So, computer forensics is now being used to investigate a wide variety of crimes: child pornography, fraud, espionage, cyberstalking, murder, rape. It's also frequently used in civil proceedings as a form of information gathering and information display. Facial recognition technology, FRT, is a biometric technology using automatic processes to identify individual people based on their facial features. FRTs have become more and more popular with increasingly sophisticated devices and software. But the increased use of facial scanning and analysis has long-term social impacts. FRT is used by law enforcement to identify suspects. It's used at the border and in airports to facilitate travel and protect homelands. And it's also used by a variety of private sector businesses. It has the potential to increase security, to add convenience to people's daily lives, but it also has the potential for abuse by both the government and private sector. Facial recognition technology remains largely unregulated throughout the world. The accuracy of this technology has improved dramatically in recent years, but there are still constitutional privacy and other concerns. Some observers have questioned whether the technology is really accurate enough to be used in law enforcement decisions. The National Institute of Standards and Technology has been measuring the performance of facial recognition algorithms. They started doing that in 1993, and not surprisingly, they find that the technology has gotten better over time. In fact, it's gotten a lot better. In 2018, the best systems had an error rate of just 0.2%, and that is about 20 times better than 5 years earlier in 2013. The research does suggest, though, that it's disproportionately inaccurate on certain groups, in particular, people with darker skin, women, younger people. Now, it may be that part of this problem is due to the way that light refracts off of the skin of these people, and it's quite possible that the data sets used to train the recognition algorithms had a built-in racial and gender bias. Police agencies throughout the world are adopting and testing various forms of facial recognition to help in their law enforcement. The FBI has used facial recognition to identify individuals in the 2021 Capitol riots. In the UK, the Metropolitan Police are using FRT in live cameras to identify people on police wanted lists. Facial recognition technology gives a quick and efficient and less subjective way for identifying persons of interest, even if the individuals provide false or misleading information. The facial recognition technology can check it quickly and easily. This reduces the risk of mistaken identity. It cuts down on unnecessary trips to the police station to confirm identities. Taking the human perspective out of the equation also helps reduce the potential for inaccuracies in memory and for misidentification that could occur in more traditional ways of identifying persons of interest. This does, however, raise issues of consent and privacy. And there's also concerns that law enforcement is more likely to use this technology against minorities. Recall, the minorities are among the areas where the technology is less correct, less efficient. Retailers, casinos, financial institutions, apartment buildings, private sector businesses in general are using facial recognition to identify customers, to prevent fraud and theft, and to authorize entry into rooms and buildings. Facial recognition is also used to secure access to digital media, open or enable smartphones and other hardware, and to record time and attendance in the workplace. Most airlines are employing facial recognition technology in their boarding process. It's been used to help provide banking services in emerging markets and to provide identification for interest in concert tickets, ticketing services, and security at large sporting events.